Hello, my name is Timeless, and this is Cabalistic News. Yesterday, the Jordanian king, probably the most friendly of the Middle Eastern countries other than Israel, told America that if there's going to be peace in the Middle East, the Palestinians have to have a state. For years, been a question. There'll be the one-state solution, meaning there'll be one state of Jewish and Palestinians, or two-state solution. The Jews and the Palestinians each have a state. And of course, problems with land, and there's so many problems. But I thought it is important to go back to the very beginning of this relationship, because it wasn't always acrimonious, not at all. 4,000 years, when Abraham came to the land of Israel, the Palestinians were extremely friendly to him, and in the end, the king sat down with him and made a covenant that will always live together in peace. And we always did. There were thriving communities, Jewish communities in Gaza, and even I lived there in the 80s, and before a lot of this stuff started, and Palestinians would leave and go to work in Israel, and there was trust. But the way that when the trust started to break down was when, 100 years ago, when Britain went into Egypt and then into Israel, and then that was World War I. It kept going until they could conquer all of the Middle East, which they did, and which they broke up into different states. And these are not people who ever lived in states. They lived in tribes, and there was the land, and there was Semitic people, which were the Jews and the Arabs. The Palestinians are not Semitic people. The Palestinians predated Abraham, and he's the beginning of the Semitic people. The Jews and the Arabs come out from Abraham. And because of this, there's actually a lot of discordance between the Arabs and the Palestinians, and this came to a head by putting them all into Gaza and trying to separate them out from the Arab states, and told them that you want a state, it's Israel. You kill the Jews, and you'll have a state. Or the alternative, God forbid, Jews kill the Palestinians, and then they have a state. And neither is right. Could we actually have a covenant between each other that we'll live in peace, that we won't do that? But it's all been set up in a way forcing us, that we're not brothers like we are with the Arabs. We have the same father. But nonetheless, we have this covenant, and we lived in peace for thousands of years. I mean, there were wars, and there were skirmishes and stuff like that. But in general, we lived in peace. And so what happened is, after the state of Israel, and it just became this huge problem that the Jordan, they took what is now called the West Bank of the Jordan. They took that also, and they said that's part of their state, and Jerusalem. And there was a war, and they got pushed back. And then this became contested territory. The Palestinians said it's our state, and the Jews said, we should negotiate. That's sort of where we are now. And but the interesting thing is that the Egyptians, they forced them into Gaza. And then there was a war, and Israel took the Sinai Desert, went all the way to the Suez Canal, and they stopped the Suez Canal for years until they made peace and gave it back to Egypt. But in that war, originally Gaza had belonged to Egypt, but after the war, belonged to Israel. It's actually part of Israel. So we have the problem. So it seems that the obvious solution, if they want a state, I believe in the no state solution. I don't think Israel should be a state. That's not what we're meant to do. But if the Palestinians want a state, I say give them the Sinai. It would give them a huge area of land. And Jewish people, we live there, made the desert bloom. We could teach you how to do it. And you'd be right about against the canal. You could get money from that. There's many, I think it's a very, I don't know, I've never heard of anyone suggesting such a solution, but I'm suggesting such a solution. And, for the meantime, until this politics end, it all really started because the West wants to have their influence in the Middle East. They want to tell the Middle East what to do. And that's what's all, they can make a war here or there. And, this, and the fact that people have left and now gone to the West, and now the West is seeing all these immigrants. Well, you came and you made all this trouble in the Middle East, and now the Middle East is coming to you. So I don't know. It is a big problem, but I think that there are ways, certainly peaceful ways, and don't need any more wars to make this thing straight. Anyways, this has been Cabalistic News.